Hello and good morning to you all. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar on quote orders. I'm your host for today, and for those of you who may not know me, my name is Michelle Fitzgerald. So today we're going to look at how to use quote orders. It will be just a quick overview to give you the frame of the workflow. So as I've said before, my name's Michelle Fitzgerald. I'm a senior business consultant here at Nimbus, and I've been working on and off at Nimbus for nearly 20 years. Gail is our general manager. She has not been able to join us today, but that's okay. You're in safe hands. So today's session objective is really just to show how efficiently you're able to track and handle materials and stock for your jobs or customer orders so that you can easily assess what's been used, what's on hand, and what needs ordering. So there's a level of accuracy around quote orders. It helps manage the budget because you can see what's been allowed for and what's been used. And of course, quote orders fully integrates with the rest of Nimbus, which is great. So just as a byproduct of other people's tasks within the organisation, quote orders remains up to date and accurate. So today's agenda, we've just looked at the session objective. So what we're going to do next is introduce the quote orders interface. We're going to build a purchasing list from the quote order, issue an item or a couple of items from stock, and show how this can dovetail into your workflow. Now you'll notice that you can't say anything because obviously it's difficult to have lots of people talking at once. So at the end, we are going to have a Q&A session. And if you have any questions, if you just type them into the chat, and at the end of the session, Daryl, who you can see on the screen there, is going to go through the questions with us. Thanks, Daryl. Right, so let's hook into it. I'll just bring up my screen. Rightio. So just to give you frame quote orders for you, it's a web version of what has been our traditional Visual Basic sales order application. And so not only can it deliver on standard sales orders requirements of processing a customer order in the most traditional sense, but it can also manage your stock and materials required for projects and jobs, all of this based from your quote. So this interface uses our web intranet, and what that means is it's able to filter easily to different schedules or jobs within your quote orders, ascertain what items are in stock and those that need ordering. So you can build a purchasing list for your project or job, or produce a picking list for your store, depending on how you manage your stock. So, and the really cool thing is that you know exactly what's outstanding from your quote and to ensure the delivery of goods and services to the site or client. So what we're going to do though, for the purposes of this, I guess the key thing about quote orders is that the information is based from a quote. So that's where we're going to start this morning. So I'm going to look at my 2 quote list in Nimbus. So I've got some quotes that I'm working on here. And this top one here of fabricating a machine, that's been sent to the client. Now, before we start raising purchase orders or posting stuff from stock to a job based on a quote, what we need to do is commit that quote, because essentially what we're saying is that that client has agreed on the price and they've accepted the quote and the job can get underway. So we're just going to come in here and open the quote so we can see what I've allowed for. So you can see in here we've got several schedules within this quote, design, the chamber schedule, assemble, and then a site install. So we're building a machine. that's going to be installed on a site. So what I need to do, this is essentially we're saying that the customers agree to this price, so I'm going to save and commit this quote. Because essentially, after the client has accepted the price, you don't want your budget to change unless you're logging a variation for the job or the project. So this original budget, we commit that, and then what that's saying is we cannot change it. So now that I've saved and committed that, we can see that that job has had a status update to QA, which means it's accepted. So I'm going to pop down here to my quote order item on the menu. We can see down here, I've got this job 1137 to fabricate a machine for my mate Buck Shelford, actually. So across here, we can see that there is a quote orders column. And depending on the state of the actual order will depend on what shows here, but I've got the opportunity here to create the quote order based on that quote. So all I need to do is click that, and that's prepped the information. And essentially what it's done is it's brought through all the data in that's quoted when it's stock or materials, and assembled it in this quote order interface. So what we can do here is you'll notice that I can sort by schedule, and this has put the items that we need to either raise purchase orders for or gather from stock into this quote order. You'll notice that there's no design schedule, and that's because that was all labour. So quote orders or traditional sales orders is all about products. So it's about stock, materials, items that you're buying in to supply. And in this case, it's going to be fabricated and delivered and installed on a site. So what we have in here is the information relating to that from the budget. So we've got our chamber schedule, we've got some steel that we need here. You can see that where there's a quote supplier, so this is linked to the items in your stock file of the supplier who normally provides those products. So it defaults the quote supplier as that supplier, but we can change that. So, and then you'll see there's a few items in here that are bought in. So there's the special items that are being bought in, especially for this job. They don't have a quote supplier, so we can add a supplier that we want to actually get those products from. Right. Now, and so we've got our quoted quantity over here. So that's everything we allowed for in our quote. We've got our quantity on hand. So this shows if we have any of the items in our store. So we can see here that we have some of the steel and also the AP30 aggregate that we need for installing it on site. It identifies if anything's already been used on the job, is on order, and what's still required. So at this point, nothing has happened because our still required column is exactly the same as our quoted column. And then over here, I guess, are the key columns that we're going to be working mostly with. The issue, so something that will get issued from our store, or ordered, where we need to raise a purchase order to get those products in. And then you'll see there is another column here where if we're ordering stuff for the job, we can order extra for stock. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at, excuse me, I guess one of the cool things about quote orders is for a number of our customers, they might have 700-800 lines of goods actually on a quote to do some work. Now, that just fills up, that's a lot of data, and it's a lot of data to scroll through and filter through and work out what it is that you need from one moment to the next, especially if the job or the project is going over a long period of time. So the cool thing about this is that we can filter. So if I just want to have a look at what I need for the first schedule, the chamber, I can easily filter to that and I can see what I require. So I need to remember who the steel drum, who I'm ordering that from. So sometimes, depending on how you use quoting, you can actually put the supplier in at the time of quoting, but for the purposes of this, we're going to do it here. So I can come in here and change the supplier. I'm pretty sure that we were going to get that steel drum from Placemakers, and we don't have it in stock, so I'm going to order that from them. So you can see now where the supplier is updated over here. So if we make any changes, it shows in this column, because essentially this is the column that will get used. Now I've got some items on hand. So with the steel angle here, it says that there is 15 on hand. So I could take 10 on hand. I can take 10 from stock and order the extra 5. And also I need 6 of these steel plates. 5, sorry, and I've got 6 on hand. So if I just click issue items in stock here, you'll see that it checks these and it updates my issue column so that these can be taken from stock. Now, depending on your workflow, will sort of, I guess, a little bit determine what happens next. But essentially, if we want to give a picking slip to our storeman, it could be that they look at this picking slip on a tablet and roam around their store picking up the items on the list. It might be that you print this picking list for the store and they walk around with a piece of paper. It depends totally on your organisation. So you can see here, this is what's been issued, because based on what's on hand. So what we can do is if we successfully go around and everything is there that we want to, we can just we can update the items and numbers picked. So we can bulk select that, and what that means is that that's picked everything. In this case, though, I'm pretty sure when I went to get this steel, there was actually only 9. So I can change that and update it to be 9. You'll see that it's coloured it slightly differently because it's not quite the number that I thought I was going to have. Now, once this has been picked and that's returned to the fabrication team, these items can be posted. And you'll see that there's still 1 down here to pick that actually wasn't there. So if we come back now into our quote order, we can see that what's gone to the job already is 9 of these, the steel angle, and 5 of these steel plates. And it says here there's still 1 to issue, but the reality is we know that it's not there. So what I can do is I can change that. I'm going to take it out of the issue quantity and I'm going to put it in the order quantity instead. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to filter down to my chamber schedule. So you can see here that I've got my steel drum to order from Placemakers, and I've got 1 of these steel angles that I need to order because there wasn't enough. So because I need everything for the chamber job, I'm going to update to order everything left on that. So by clicking on order these items, it updates the order quantity based on what was in the still required quantity. Now at this point, I can raise purchase orders for these. But I've realised that I'm actually going to need more of these steel angles in stock for other jobs that I've got going on. So I'm going to come in here and order another 10 for stock. So you'll see that's updated that column. At this point, I'm going to actually create my purchase orders. So I would expect 2 purchase orders to be raised here, 1 for Placemakers and 1 for Fletcher Steel. So I can put in my expected delivery date. put notes for the purchase orders, and order these items. So you'll see now that the order quantity is moved to the already on order column. If I come and look at my purchase orders, you'll see that we've got two purchase order numbers, 2367, 2366. And what happens from here would depend a little bit on your workflow. It can be that these are emailed out to the suppliers if that's the current workflow that you have. It can also mean that if you had built up purchasing lists across many quote orders and you're coming in here when you generate your actual purchase order, you might want to print a supplier order, where that means that if you've got a lot of items for Fletcher's, for example, across multiple jobs, it collates all those orders onto one supplier order. But obviously, it puts the correct job number against the items in the purchase order. So that covers that little bit off. Now, the other thing about quotes and working out what you need for jobs and such is that sometimes we don't always get everything. We don't always account for everything, and sometimes we might realise that we've forgotten something. So in this case, I've forgotten that I need some galvanised nails for this. Now this can be processed outside of the quote orders interface, or we can add items to it. So I can use this header link up here to add an extra item. Look at my stock file. I can see my galvanised nails there. I need 2 boxes of nails. Add a little note in there. We can see that the standard supplier is Placemakers, but if I want to change that and get the nails potentially from somewhere else, I could get them from Carter's if I need to raise an order for them. And you'll see there that that's added that line in, but the source is different. So where these items have generated from the quote, we can see that this is extra. So it's quite cool. So if stuff has already been, or if it's ordered for any of this job outside of this process, then it shows as coming from the purchase order source. And if anything is posted to the job outside this quote order process, then it comes in with a source of used. So it gives you visibility. But ideally what you do is process it all from this interface. Now, I'm going to assume that the steel has arrived from Fletcher's. Now, depending on your individual organisation, you might have a storeman that looks after your store who receipts in items as they come in and price them off a packing slip, or it might be that the supplier includes an invoice on the goods and that this is handed on to someone in your accounts payable if it's not processed by the storeman itself. So we're going to come in here. I've got my accounts payable hat on and look at the purchase order invoices, and we'll see here that here's our purchase order for Fletcher's 2367. So I'm going to process the supplier's invoice for that. So I'll put in my invoice date. It's pretty nice that they delivered it on the same day I ordered it. Okay, so you can see here that we ordered the 10 extra steel angles. So 16 were ordered in here, but we can see that the job quantity is 6. So of those items, 6 are going to go to the job, but 10 are going to go into stock. So I can confirm that all of those items have arrived and they were at my expected cost. And yes, I want to process the invoice for these. So I'll just OK that. Now when I come back here and refresh my quote order, you can see that the items moved from on order to used. So you can see how this updates nicely based on the other processes that you already utilise within Nimbus. So one other thing is if you're using quote orders for projects, it's worthwhile noting that if we come back to our quote orders list, you'll see here that this one here is for a project 1128. So if I click on the project order, you'll see in this scenario, we've got each job that's part of that project in the quote orders. So not only do we have the schedule, but we also have the jobs. So whereby you've got lots of products across various jobs within a project, you can see them all in one interface. You can filter to individual jobs if that's what you need to do, just the same way as we could with the schedule on the earlier example. And you'll see in this instance for those first two jobs, there is actually no stock in those quotes. However, if we did want to add stock to those jobs, we could then, if we saved and committed the quote, we can come and click on to insert the items after the fact. So, and it's the same with variations. So if you have another variation job that's logged and a quote built up, sent off for approval by the customer, these items can also be inserted in here, and it's all managed from that one singular place. So yeah, so that's just a real quick overview of quote orders. There are lots of other bits of juicy goodness built into the package around, you know, updating items in bulk based on what you're filtering to and other such goodness. But this is just really designed to give you a quick overview of the workflow. So I'm not sure if any questions have come in, Daryl. Do you want to go over those?
So there's nothing through yet. So folks, just use the Q&A button at the top to fire through any questions you do have. There is a just a couple of things we thought of. Can it handle bill of materials? Yes, it expands any BOM out to show the assembly components of the BOM that may need ordering or picking from stock. And then secondly, is there a packing slip that can be printed to go out with goods? And the answer again is yes. There's an allowance for that, but we realise that there are often different requirements per site. So, but it's easy to add that in.
Yeah. So, and that is the case. I mean, people's sort of like outputs tend to vary a lot. So we've got a fairly bland standard one when delivering goods to sites, but often this needs updating. So yeah, but yeah, and the BOM thing is really handy actually, because quite a few of our customers use bill of materials, especially from a pricing point of view. They don't want to be entering in all the components in their quote. So they put the bill of material in, but then when it gets to the quote order stage, it's expanded it all out into all the parts that make up that bill of material. So it's pretty handy.
Okay, so a question from Peter.
Yep.
Not directly quote orders, but can quotes be created in Excel and imported to Nimbus? As the quoting feature of Nimbus is very fragile.
Okay. Well, you can. I mean, we do have other customers that do that. The only thing with that is that it doesn't come in formatted, so it comes in as, I guess, without the formatting and the gaps and the subtotals and stuff like that between schedules. But yeah, I mean, you can import spreadsheets or CSV files basically into the quoting of Nimbus, because essentially the lines in your quote are loaded into your job transaction file as individual items. So yes, that is possible.
Thanks, Michelle. Question from Tony. Do the supplier purchase orders email directly from the Nimbus system?
Yes, they can do. Yep, absolutely. I would anticipate that most of our customers who use purchase orders, email them direct. Yep, that's pretty much it. Okay. Right. Well, look, hey, thanks very much for attending this webinar.